Bring it back. That was way spicier than my Pledge of Allegiance comment. Right, so I had a few conversations, just a brief comment of like where if you're using, we just had a dialogue together, and if you're using the words like subsidiarity and common good, you are on the right track, right? We are having the same conversation together. So, yeah, I want to, that the point of that first talk was to have the good glasses so that we can talk in light of the gospel. We can so easily think we are, but are not actually doing so. And we had a discussion together, which was spicy. Okay. Okay, so this next talk is on, I don't have a flashy title for it, sorry. It's just politics and morality. Where does morality fit into the current political landscape? So to introduce that, I want to talk about these two books. The Catechetical of Leibowitz is a work of fiction, and it has this setting, that nuclear bombs went off, countries traded nuclear bombs, blew up the whole civilization. There's no actual civilization. People survived, whatever. There's like some mutations from the radiation, but there's no like big civilization things. And in addition to that, the people that did survive had an uprising and killed all the scientists because they were responsible for the nuclear bombs in the first place. They burned all of the science books because that's what led to the nuclear bomb in this book, right? So what is the landscape in this situation? There's leftovers, there's like bits and pieces of science textbooks and like the previous culture that was just destroyed. And the people that have survived are using the words and like they're looking at these scraps of culture and they're completely misunderstanding. So like one example was like there was a drawing of circuits. I'm an electrical engineer, so it's like resistors and different circuits, a light bulb and those things. And there's some monks in this new civilization take that and they think that it's beautiful art. And they start decorating the sides of their Bible with little resistor symbols and a little light bulb thing. They're completely misunderstanding what those symbols were. The electricity, right? Electricity is long gone here, but they're using it kind of wrong. The point is that the previous civilization, the words, the symbols, the culture is just kind of being used wrongly, completely misunderstood. I know Father Reed mentioned the name Alasdair MacIntyre. He wrote this book, After Virtue, where he references this book in that situation and saying, this is us, especially in terms of virtue. And maybe generally, when we talk about morality, we are not talking about the same thing that those that came before us. Like he's thinking of the medieval age, the pursuit of virtue and these things. We're using the same words, but we really are after virtue. We're not talking about it. We're not on the same line as those who came before us. We're kind of decorating the pages, and we think we're... Hello? I'm sorry. Thank you, Jamie. I'm going to stop touching the mic. Is what I wanted to say. Okay. So with that setup, here's Vice President Vance, who I don't know if y'all followed it. The Pope was saying things very against the U.S.-Iran war. Okay. Vice President Vance said, the Pope needs to stop talking about the war and needs to stick to talking about morals, which is literally insane. I hear that and I have no idea, what does he mean? Does morals have nothing to do with war at all? That is insane. We're using the same words. Don't know what we're really meaning by them. I think what he's saying is a thing of liberalism, that morality is this private thing. Morality, like as families, we can be moral people, but when we get to the bigger things, we're not talking about morality anymore. We're talking about politics. Saying like we're not going to act the same if we're dealing in politics, or like big country to country, we're not going to have the same virtues, which is not true. But I'm just pulling out that's being spoken about, and maybe to someone in the country that statement made sense. It did not to me. Or maybe if you've heard people say you can't legislate morality. Have y'all heard that? You can't legislate morality. That is the same thing that Vance just said, and I hope maybe if by the end of the presentation, maybe it'll be the same sort of insanity. I hope with that if I'm at all helpful. I'm going to build the case that to say I can't legislate morality is just as insane as like war and morality. Those don't go together. Just as insane. Okay. Politics, making law. If we are not making a law to say that someone must do something good or not do something bad, what kind of a law are we making? Even in that very basic thing. If we're not making a law that's saying do this because it's good, or if we're not making a law that's saying don't do that, that's bad, what other possibility for a law is there? When we did that affirmative, negative, interesting exercise, the dialogue, notice I used the word should. Should the schools do this? Or should we use missiles in the Iraq war? That makes it very specific, and then we can affirm or negate it. But it's also bringing it to the point of like, what we're talking about is this thing a good thing? Not just will it work, that's involved, but is it good? Should we do it? That's where we're talking about morality already. There, ought we do this thing? Okay, pause. I want to come at this from two different perspectives. They're both kind of broad, but one is wider, one is more specific. I'm worried that either me or Father Reed did not convince you yet that you can't avoid politics, right? Because that is like one of the proposals of just like, I'm just not gonna deal with it at all. All right. Sometimes people reference this passage right here from the Gospel of Matthew. The Pharisees went off and plotted how they might entrap him in speech. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are a truthful man and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. And you're not concerned with anyone's opinion, for you do not regard a person's status. Tell us, then, what is your opinion? Is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay the census tax or not?" Knowing their malice, Jesus said, "Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin that pays the census tax." Then they handed him the Roman coin. He said to them, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" They replied, "Caesar's." At that he said to them, "Then repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." When they heard this, they were amazed, and leaving him, they went away. Repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, to God what belongs to God. Some might say, see, we don't have any obligation to politics, or at least maybe they can be mostly avoided. That's not what Jesus says. Jesus says there is an obligation to Caesar, an obligation to civic duty is how we would probably say it today. And yes, to Jesus' big point, it is definitely subordinated to our duty to God. Absolutely. Do you ever hear someone break down this passage where Jesus uses, all right, whose image and inscription, or in other translations, whose image and likeness is on the coin? That should be triggering our scripture senses. So Caesar's likeness and image is on the coin, so that belongs to Caesar. Okay, what belongs to God then? Well, wherever God's image and likeness is. And of course, maybe in the highest place, we are in God's image and likeness, so we belong to God. That's a great point of there. And it's also an implication for Caesar, because Caesar himself, he's an emperor, but he was made by God. He belongs to God, right? He is subordinated to God. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's fun. The Catechism talks about the fourth commandment, honor your mother and your father. And it's here that civic duty is found in the Catechism. Why? We receive benefits from our mother and father, and then we then have obligations from that, even from reason itself. It's the same thing with our nation. We have our city, our state, all levels, our neighborhood. We receive benefits from them. We do have obligations. It's our duty to contribute, along with the civil authorities, to the good of society in a spirit of truth, justice, solidarity, and freedom. Love and service of one's country follow from the duty of gratitude, because we have received from our country. And it belongs to the order of charity, because we do love our country. We should love our country. Submission to legitimate authorities in service of the common good requires citizens to fulfill their roles in the life of the political community. Can't avoid it. It's something good. It's even in charity itself, our obligation into politics. And then this is quoting one of the church fathers. It's a very good quote, just exploring the uniqueness of how Christians do that. First, as Christians reside in their own nations, but as resident aliens. They're residents, they're citizens, they're also aliens. They don't belong. They participate in all things as citizens, endure all things as foreigners. They have like the disadvantages of foreigners. They obey the established laws. Their way of life surpasses those laws. The gospel, of course, surpasses the laws of America. So noble is the position to which God has assigned them that they're not allowed to desert it, not allowed to avoid politics, because it's noble, in fact, for us to be both citizens and aliens. The Catechism does reference that Caesar tax passage that sometimes people will say we can avoid politics. Catechism references it in this way: the citizen is obliged in conscience not to follow the directives of civil authorities when they are contrary to the demands of the moral order, when they're contrary to morality, when they're contrary to the fundamental rights of persons or the teachings of the gospel. Refusing obedience to civil authorities when their demands are contrary to those of an upright conscience finds its justification in the distinction between serving God and serving the political community. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And quoting St. Peter, we must obey God rather than men. So that's whenever we can bring in the tax thing, is if the political community does, in fact, interfere, even maybe most historically, interfere with our duty to God, but it could also interfere historically as well with morality itself, the life that we are obliged to live as Christians. Okay, Caesar's owed some things, God is owed all things. Politics are not completely corrupted. If Caesar asks for God's things, we must say no, right? Okay. So in that, I want to call this our public vocation. I think that's a nice title that we can give it to that we really do have a call to be public in itself. This is from Pope John Paul II. The church seeks to lead people to respond with the support also of rational reflection and of the human sciences to their vocation as responsible builders of earthly society. Their vocation, call to build the world. God's call for us to build the world. And the church leads there, leads the people, not just our own people, those that are inside and those outside the church, leading by the gospel, by our Christian life that we are living. And even in there, we definitely use reason. We definitely use science when it leads us to truth, when it leads us to goodness. And I know Father Reed had that the Tower of Babel on his slide there. I'm just re-echoing that we have the two main movements that we either build. What's the society that we build? We either build the Tower of Babel in man's pride, the tower against God, or we rebuild Jerusalem itself, which is a community with God. It's another thing in America we're kind of uncomfortable, or we're just not so experienced with, the community living as a people of God. Right? We have a lot of experience, like in a personal relationship, I find, as a community, as we build a city itself, Jerusalem. We rebuild it. That is a vocation that God calls us to. Oh, yeah, here's this other quote, which is, maybe Father Reed didn't quote it from Pope Leo XIV's encyclical, but he says, some objected that the church should not waste energy on worldly matters, instead focus on communicating the message of eternal life. Leo XIII responded with reality and wisdom, saying that the proclamation of the gospel cannot overlook the concrete lives of people. Concrete lives of people. If we said that the gospel does not affect our life in the world, we'd be saying the gospel doesn't matter at all. Or Advance's comment, well, the gospel doesn't affect war at all. How could we possibly say that? The gospel affects everything in the world. And I do like to make big connections when I can. A lot of times we talk about culture or the world in the negative. There's a space for that to mean things against the faith. But it's a cool word. Culture has cult in it. We think of it has such a bad connotation now of just like a small group of people that are being led astray into death, I guess. But culture really has its place. It's a connection in worship itself, a cult and worship. And so if we talk about the culture, you have a culture of bacteria, okay? We also use it in that way. We're talking about life, but life that comes from what you worship. The life that you see based on the worship. Or we could say it's the lived expression of values. We have these values, and now this is how we're living. That's the culture. Especially when it's shared amongst a great group of people, we then see it in the grand scale, the culture lived. So I got these pictures up here. I grew up going to Granny's house, my grandma's house, on Sunday, every Sunday of the week, and my Aunt Nicole was there too. And so that is an aspect of culture. That's not random. Valuing family time, that's underlying that. Sharing a meal itself is important to us. Sunday Mass itself is like an underlying value, which then comes together, and we have the Sunday meal. And it's very common for us as Cajuns. It can differ in formality or casualness, but it's not random. It's built on what we value. That's the point that I'm trying to make. It's built on what we worship, ultimately God, but even just what we're valuing. And I have a Christmas lights over there because that allows us to then say okay, at Christmas time, whole neighborhoods and parts of the city are decked out in Christmas lights. What's underneath that? Desire for beauty, valuing beauty, and maybe we could say like a Christmas feel, or that Christmas charm. There's something there that we really love, and it's on a bigger scale where homes can even compete with one another, right? It can really contribute to a whole neighborhood that's lit up for the Christmas celebration. My point again is that there's values lying underneath that are then it matters. That's how we're living our life. It's from what we're actually valuing there, and both of those are based on the gospel, right? Those are good cultural expressions. Could we say that a Christian should even further make their Sunday meal based on the gospel, or full of the life of the gospel? Family prayer? You want to read scripture at your family meal? That's a great idea. Those are ways that you can the kind of the foundation for it to be fully involved in the expression. Maybe how we put up Christmas decorations, that you have a nativity set in your yard, is fully getting at what is this about again, right? It's fully informing the culture there. Gospel is already being lived there in what we're valuing. So, public vocation. God's call for us to build a human and holy world together. Building a human and holy culture is the same thing, right there. That we're actually living holiness and living humanly. Okay, so then really the ultimate point of this of that part was to say that politics are a necessary part of life, not in the dregs of the necessary part of life, but instead it flourishes human life. These are we could call them political realities in that way. Let's see if I fully convince you by the end of this. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to give a little bit a different argument, a little bit more specific, even though it's still pretty broad in nature. So the moral law, or back to the moral law within politics, okay? The most basic moral law. Do we know that? The most basic moral law. I thought it made so much sense whenever I heard it, because it does. You know the most basic moral law? I know Father Reed does. The most basic moral law is do good, avoid evil. I'm like, oh yeah. Kayla's like, I knew that. Of course we knew that. We should be living by that, and certainly we should be. It's not a suggestion; it's a mandate, and it's a law in itself. We're swimming in America and in liberalism there. Liberalism wants to cast doubt. Remember, it's making that space that's kind of neutral, like some things can go there, other things can't. Liberalism wants to cast doubt that there is a definite good itself. Like when we say do good, they say no, that's nothing definite. Maybe that's just something personal that we can make up. Whatever works is good, whatever is convenient is good, whatever the good that you want is good. So we're going to try and break that down. I heard Father Reed talk to y'all about the eternal law, so I'm just going to review that. It's looking at St. Thomas Aquinas, specifically as he talks about law, and law is a very important thing in politics. So the eternal law. God is creator. God has created not only the world, but also you. And he stands, I like this a lot, he stands to us as a craftsman to his craft. We are the pot, he is the potter. How can the pot question the potter? It's from one of the prophets in the Bible. And it's also like an artist to his work of art, is a different way of saying that. Why is that important? We are made, we are defined, we are determined by God to be a certain part of his creation, which is human beings, of course. We are made a human being by God. And so the good of humans is part of what they are. Made by God for that purpose, made good in themselves. So, for example, how does this work? And we're going to build up from here. But it's not good for a person to eat food until they're sick. I know Father Reed had some other examples. It's not good for a person to breathe water. It's not good for a person to jump off a cliff without a parachute, because we can't fly as human beings in ourselves. It's not good for man to be alone. Genesis. Okay, that's baked into what we are. It's baked into the pottery itself. When we talk about eternal law, we can also say God governs the acts and movements that are found in every single one of his creatures. Are you hearing that totally? God governs the acts and movements that are found in every one of his creatures. I think we would need to talk a little bit more philosophically to distinguish what he's saying, because I think we're probably like, what about free will, right? What about free will? You're saying we don't have free will. That's not what I'm saying. What this is getting at is that God's act of creating you is not something that's in the past that you can kind of just generally forget about. God's action is right now. His governance, his movements are right now. It's not in a way that contradicts your free will. You wouldn't be able to walk across the room if God wasn't sustaining the floor into existence, your body, your soul giving life to your body, your senses leading you to that delicious Chick-fil-A earlier, and the fact that God even created food in the first place, that God created your need for food, that he wants to provide that food for you. God's governing all of these things, and not just like in the past, but like right now. That's why I mentioned the Chick-fil-A food. Like that was from God. Yeah, truly. There was a young girl. We were in a small group, and she said, I don't know how we were talking about Chick-fil-A, but we talked about Chick-fil-A. She's like, well, like Chick-fil-A is not from God. Like, what do you mean it's not from God? And it was a little spontaneous inspiration. I was like, what is the blessing that we pray before meals? Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts. The Chick-fil-A is a gift from God, right? The fact that there's mediators in between is not an obstacle to that at all. He's governing every single part of that. Every single part of that. Sustaining every single part of that. Giving you the gift of Chick-fil-A. Right. Also, the consequences themselves are directed by God. Like if we didn't go get the Chick-fil-A, now you are hungry, and that is unavoidable. That is unavoidable. It's a consequence that God has baked into the whole thing. And so, in general, I think we could when we talk about the eternal law, we're also talking about divine wisdom that has directed all actions and movements, not just like a set of precepts that we better observe, but like our actions themselves are being guided and moved by him, not in a way that contradicts our free will. Okay. All knowledge itself, like I'm just trying to like bake this into, I get it, it's like very broad, but like these are foundations itself of reality. Knowledge, anything that we know, is a reflection or a participation in the eternal law, or we could say the divine wisdom right there. We could say it this way, in God's plan for created things. All knowledge is knowledge of God's own plan. When we talk about like a law needs to be based on right reason, meaning it's always going to participate in God's plan, in God's wisdom, and if it does not, it's what we call it an unjust law. It's against the eternal law. A silly example that I thought of. Lafayette issues a law Everyone who has fish in their homes must take them out of their fish bowls, let them breathe air for 1 hour on Sundays. That is a silly situation, but it's also an unjust law. That is wrong and harmful. No, it's going to harm the fish. We're talking about morality here, even in this very, very silly example. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. That would be wrong. It's not in God's plan for the fish to do that. And so we should not do that. Okay. Y'all talk about natural law with Father Reed? Natural law? Natural law, that's where we're getting this very compact statement. Moral law, do good, avoid evil. Why? Everything acts for the good. That is just how reality itself is. Human reason proposes something that should be done, that is good, or something evil that should be avoided. And again, it's like based on what we are and who we are that God has created. I think this is really cool. It's from St. Thomas Aquinas. We have natural inclinations to the good, which he will say for humans, the human being, self-preservation, which we share with all living things, sexual intercourse and education of offspring, and so forth, is what he says. That's an exact quote. That's what we share. That's even what we share with animals. But yet, we also an inclination, meaning we want these things. We also want to know the truth about God, and we want to live in society. Again, this learning was also helping the Thomas Hobbes part of Father David. All right, we want to live in society as human beings. And you know, this part is also like marriage is brought up into the divine experience there as well. It's not just shared with animals there. This is how he's laying it out for us. So, God has created human nature good. The eternal law, divine wisdom, natural law flows from it. Like we're seeking those things that God has made good for us. There are goods that are more difficult. There are goods that are more difficult, meaning like we're not just inclined to them. We need the application of reason, and we find that they lead to a fuller life. Easiest example that I thought of, dessert before dinner is not good. I now I understand my mom. Dessert before dinner is not as good as dessert after dinner. You always have room for dessert after dinner. Always. But you don't have room for dinner after dessert. It's so silly, but it's baked into our experience. And we have that inclination. Why am I saying that? Because we have that inclination, like, that dessert looks really good. I want to eat that for my dinner. And your life is not good after that, right? Life is not good after that. Human law comes in. Like natural law, we're speaking about, really, we can even speak about just our in that sentence and just continue on, Father David. Human law is then we're going to take the natural law, what is good for man, what should we avoid for man, and we're going to make laws that are actually going to help us live in society, help, like if we made it a law, you cannot have dessert before dinner, that would be for the good of at least Father David. At least Father David can sometimes need that law. But here's a quote from a philosopher which has just given us some basis for human law. Laws were made that in fear thereof human audacity might be held in check, that innocence might be safeguarded in the midst of wickedness, that the dread of punishment might prevent the wicked from doing harm. So, I mean, we're in a fallen world. Human law also helps us specify what we might want to ignore if we could get away with it. All right, that temptation is definitely in our heart. And so the part of what I'm getting at is that human law is absolutely a part of building a world, rebuilding Jerusalem. Human law is definitely a part of that. Positive law is the same thing, a law that's made, a law that's enforced. must be based on right reason, and that's the measure of its justice, as if it's actually real, like based on reality and what is really good. Last little law part, divine law, is the only new part of divine law is that God is directly revealing things to us here, meaning Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments, we usually say Ten Commandments are a part of natural law. Why did God give us the Ten Commandments if we could come to know them by ourselves? Because we can easily convince ourselves of a good reason to break them. We could easily, because we are fallen, right? Ten Commandments are, of course, for our good, but we kind of, what am I saying? We kind of needed God to say, don't do that, right? And when it's God, we're like, but like, what about these reasons? He's like, don't do that. Okay. We needed that help. But then beyond that, the law of the gospel itself surpasses everything that we just said, everything that we just built up. Because it surpasses reason, it surpasses the normal human goods of this world. It's not against reason. It can be against the goods of this world. Why? It involves faith. It involves a greater knowledge. It involves greater things than this world. So the law of the gospel is part of the divine law, which then is the divine law is why we can live as citizens and as aliens. This is the way of life that surpasses just the human reasonings and those things in society. Okay. Taken together, what did I just say with those two main things? Is that we have a public vocation, can't avoid politics, and if we're going to base on eternal law reaches every single thing that is possibly human. Every single thing reaches every single level of society. That's at least the help that I would like to give to you. So then, it is legitimate that we would criticize our political parties with the gospel, which is what I have in store for you. This one's better than the other one.
Truly I say unto you, whoever welcomes one of these little ones in my name might be letting in a murderer or a drug. Let's get her to a detention center. Yeah, so we can figure out what's going on. I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. And behold, now I'm all lazy and entitled. You shouldn't have done that. Do unto others as you suspect they might want to do unto you. What is a man profit if he gained the whole world but lose his soul? A lot. He has profited from a lot. One soul for the whole world, that is an amazing deal. Why do you look at the speck of dust in your brother's eye, but ignore the plank in your own? Because of her emails. Yes. If a man strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him and shoot him. That is the law. You want to be perfect. Go. Sell all the possessions that you have and give the money to a solid mutual fund. Right?
Those are like, it's bringing to bear the gospel to the Republican Party, right? Which is legitimate. Like, of course, it's a satire. This one isn't as funny, but in all fairness, we got to criticize the Democrats.
If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them off the other also. Unless they're a Republican. You feel free to punch them in the face. Let the children come unto me, and do not hinder them, unless they might be born into poverty, or there might be an inconvenience to your party lifestyle. In that case, feel free to murder them. Haven't you read that in the beginning, God created them male and female, and genderqueer, femboy, trans man, trans woman, two-spirit. You have heard that it was said, hate your enemies. But I say to you, this is correct. You understand who your enemy is based on Marxist intersectionality theory.
As the Lord was setting out on a journey,
a certain young man approached him.
Oh, my lord, what must I do to be saved?
Be less white. But the man went away sad. He was very white.
He was very white. Okay. It's not meant to be blasphemous. It's just a satire. Again, bringing to bear the gospel, like with the political parties that we have. Maybe that's also pretty spicy. Sorry. What I want to say, it was very interesting whenever I first found those, that actually some of those were using the same gospel verses to criticize the party, each of the parties, right? Like neither of them are following the Lord in that way. And I think that with the Democrat one, maybe it was a performance thing too, but maybe some of the, as a serious comment of just the problems with the Democrat Party, like he said, the abortion thing, that's not funny, that's really sad, because almost the level of falling away from the gospel is just so great in that way. All right, so that point again was to say that a moral evaluation, of our politicians, of our laws, are absolutely warranted and needed. Okay. Here's just a last word on prudence. Prudence is a virtue, which is, I put here, creative for a purpose, because we usually think of prudence if we're talking about politics, we need to be prudent. Sometimes we can think of that as in I need to be very careful, I need to be slow, maybe I need to kind of run away, that's the prudent thing. But instead, prudence is creative, it is making the right choice for these set of circumstances. What is the good to be done right now for this person in front of me, for this group of people? That is a virtue. We don't have just plug and play politics. We don't have easy answers with politics. With all the complexity, we don't have easy answers. We can look at history. History's helpful, but our goal is not to recreate a different society. Our goal is to be Catholic right here, Catholic in our modern society, and we can be creative. We don't have set problem solving. We do have definite laws. Maybe the most complicated element of our current situation really is that the world is not all Catholic. We look at the medieval ages when the world was Catholic, and that has certain privileges to it. It really does. Right now, for us, again, we're aliens in our own nation. In many cases, we wield little political power. We are still free to influence and build without power. But we are, that we're free to live Christianity no matter what the wider world is doing. We have to know that we are free to live Christianity. No matter what people are talking about or whatever political action is going on, we must be in our freedom there. And can you imagine that we went all this way without ever defining politics itself? Actually, JP2 did say it, and what I quoted. Politics, a form of life, a way of organizing human existence, and of exercising power. All right, power is a good thing. Exercising power is a good thing. It must be done justly and for good. Okay. I do have an activity for you, because again, I misunderstood Mr. Chad. But I think it's also a good one. It is what you have on your desk. We'll see how good maybe I did in preparing you for this, but I want you to make an argument, argue against Vice President Vance. He said that morality can or should be separated from war and other political things. So, in our small groups, I would like us to try and do that. And this chart is to help you, state what is it that you're claiming This is what vice president's claiming. What is it you're claiming? Make your argument, maybe use an image if you can. Are there any counter-arguments that you might be able to think of? Okay, so let's get in our same small groups and we'll have some time for that. We don't have time to go through, and it would probably be too much to go through, like, actually everyone giving their whole thing. But two things. I do want to collect your paper because it's almost like a test for me, like how well did I help you? But before you like pass them to the center or anything, I want to ask you this: did anyone come up with like an example or an analogy to help the argument? I would be interested to hear that. Did anyone get an example or analogy that they're willing to share? Yeah.
One thing I brought up was about, the immigration issue in the United States, illegal immigrants, and it was, I think it was with Pope Francis, where there was an discussion about how the United States should be more accepting of the people coming in and not look to it, deport them or, restrict them and so forth. And so there was that conflict in that. And so, well, that's politics, not morality. And it's like, how can you separate morality from any decisions when it comes to quality of life or human dignity and so forth?
Right. Right. So you might bring to bear. So if you want to go that route and like, well, let's talk about a political issue specifically. Maybe be a little bit careful because you're going to get into hairy ground. But I would say like you can then like, okay, like does it matter like what a detention center looks like for immigration? Does it matter at all? Morality would probably say yes it does. So I think, yeah, you can definitely use such things like that. Yeah.
If war is taking place in your area, as soldiers come and burn your house to the ground, would you not cry out injustice?
Injustice. Yes. Oh yeah. The direct example in that morality. Yeah. And giving the example like to the individual, I think is a great move. Not just wrong political move, right? It'd be injustice, right? Which God would hear. Examples or analogies. Did we get any like counter arguments like that? That would be super interesting. If anyone got any counter arguments, we anticipate any of that. I think honestly, you're just going to hear the liberal claims that I mentioned before. Something like we need to have maximum freedom as possible for the individual. Something like that. Go ahead.
In war, men are asked to go against the laws of nature. They're not supposed to kill each other. And that's why they're suffering from PSTD and stuff, because we're not made to kill other people.
Sure. So that could be like a very and that would be like a very what am I trying to say? The argument is like we should not commit war at all. So I mean that's an argument, and it's one that you can definitely follow. And so then your task is then to prove that by using morality, by using the gospel. Yeah. That's a good contexting of more of like what we should actually discuss with unjust war and just war. So the popes are very, very strong post World War II of just like just war is not possible right now, like with modern warfare and all those things. So you could make that kind of an argument, and you'd have the popes to back you up there. It is an argument. You could say the popes popes want morality and everything, or there's a certain fallacy in that. It's to the authority, and just that proves it completely. But hey, you can use that argument. I'm gonna follow God here, and He has morality and everything. Okay, so I would then like y'all to turn in your sheets, please. Yeah, both of them would be fun. Please, it'll help me get a good read. Testing for me. It's not a test for you. If you put your name, I don't necessarily know who you are anyway, so. I know who Zach Fuselier is, so if you put your name. Did you write your name? Right, yeah, I'll grade yours, Zach. Thank y'all. I think we want to, whatever time we have left, I think we have about 10 minutes. Let's do if we have any Q&A, let's at least have any questions and answers. Father Reed told me my whole first talk was spicy, not just parts of it. Yeah. Guys, let's be quiet so we can hear the questions. I can also restate them. Sure. Eternal law is the whole thing. God's plan for every created thing. And we could say like the consequences if we don't follow that are also in eternal law. But then divine law comes along and reveals some aspects of that eternal law to us that we can have greater certainty, like the 10 Commandments. We can actually, like if we sat down and we're really honest, we were best philosopher in the world, we can get to the 10 Commandments just by reason. But God purposely revealed that, Moses and Israel, to help us follow the eternal law. Then there's also the gospel that comes in that is a part of the eternal law too, specifically for us, for humanity who've been redeemed, called to not just this world, but to heaven, in the kingdom of God, which is not something that we could have known, but God has made it known. So that is like this, it's like a specific distinction that St. Thomas brings out. Yeah. Yes.
So after hearing about this presentation and all the morality that we just digested, how do we begin to apply that to our voting decisions that seem so, it's like it's there, but we have to really swim through what these laws are saying and what these political parties are presenting to us. How do we do that when both of these systems, these parties, we see the evil sides of both of them? How do we navigate that today?
I'm so happy you asked that, because I skipped that part of my talk because I had this sense like, ooh, this is it's going long, right? Somebody pointed this out to me, and it was so helpful to me. We can think that the popes talked about the world, and I presented that to you. We can think of the nation itself and like the national political parties. You can think about the state of Louisiana, the city of Lafayette, and at some point we're going to think about the city council and like the proposals that are very, very local. And of course, each stage of those are important things going on. But as we get closer to ourselves and to our direct life, they will be more important for us because they will directly impact our everyday life. And that's a good thing. That's natural and that's very good. But then here's what someone said to me, is that we think of the city council and we think, that's the lowest level of politics possible. No, that's the highest level of local politics possible. Did that come through? That's not the lowest level that we can interact with. That's the highest level of local politics that we can interact with. Family, okay, making decisions as a family, making political moves, with the family, discussing what projects you want to do as a family. My mom and dad discussed like additions to the chicken coop that they have, and that puts projects on hold. Like that's all organizing human life on the very, very immediate level. We can think a little bit bigger than that is like the level of neighborhoods, and there are important things that go on that level. What is it called? It's like a bad word, right? But it's the local community association. What is it? Like, I mean, it's a bad word. Like, no one really likes them. HOA, homeowners association, right? I don't think anyone really likes them. Yet that, see, we tend to avoid politics because it can be work or organizing. I don't really like organizing. But that was part of what politics is, organizing human life. You can do. I haven't heard it successfully done at a local HOA, but you can be the first to actually positively influence your neighborhood. I think people are not really paying attention so much on that, except for the people that are on the HOAs and have very, very strong opinions about what to do or what not to do. So I'm saying all of that to be like, these are the things that are really most important, is the most local. And so to your point, when we get to the level of the city council, I think your question was, I know, I gave a very, very different answer. Your question was how you can be better informed on it. There are good, there are actual resources, which I don't know the names of, where like they describe the amendments that are being proposed there. Could you make your own proposals at city council meetings? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, I think city council members would actually, in general, like that. Because it's not just a board in charge of the city. Like the board wants to live politics well. And we need people willing to interact on that level. As much work as it really is. Was that helpful at all? Yeah. I'd say start even smaller than the voting, the local voting. That's my ultimate question. Father Reed.
When I was in Abbeville as a deacon, we had something called Catholic Relief Services. And it was a small group, and we would get together, and it was this organization that goes through the principles, and you have like people whose job it is to go through like minute details of bills and amendments and different politicians and how the programs are working around the world. And they really give you like a description of like, the bill sounds like it means this. Here's how it concretely impacts people's lives in this part of the world and stuff like that. And so we're advocating for a change in this way. And so we would like write our legislators. We even met with Clay Higgins and we explained some of the things. And so there are programs, Catholic Relief Services is one that is a great way to get informed about how to like vote in such a way that is like allowing these principles to really impact our society. So you mentioned there are some resources like that. Yep. That is one.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we had a question over here. You missed it. Maybe just time for one more question. If it's burning in someone's heart. Okay, everyone. Why don't we wait? Chad, do you have Mr. Chad? Hey, you got closing comments? Wait, did I miss one? Go ahead. We have 2 minutes. Go. It was called the pour over, like coffee. Yeah. Okay. The pour over is yeah. I've never heard of that resource, but it's one that has news, but then also scripture verse. That's what I'm hearing. Great. Great.